Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. Today we're talking AI agents.
Ooh, sounds interesting.
Yeah, I thought you'd like this one.
Yeah.
But, and this is important, we're going beyond those chatbots.
Right, chatbots. We're talking about AI that can actually do stuff out there in the world, like actually making things happen, not just talking.
Exactly. So we're not just talking about talking, we're talking about doing.
Uh-huh.
And we're seeing this everywhere, right?
Totally. Like Salesforce is doing it.
Yep. Google too.
Mm-hmm. Even Amazon. Have you heard about what they're hinting about with Alexa?
Yeah, it sounds like they want to make her more
Agentic.
agentic. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But for our deep dive today, we're focusing on a German startup, Juna.ai. And get this, they're using AI agents to treat and make factories more sustainable.
I mean, that's pretty huge. If they can pull it off, we're talking steel, chemicals, all those heavy industries that haven't exactly been known for being eco-friendly.
Yeah, no kidding. So big question, how are they doing it? Is this some far-off futuristic thing, or is this happening now?
It's happening right now.
Wow,
The company was started by Matthias Aftermauer,
after an hour.
yeah, and Christian Hardenberg.
Uh-huh.
And these guys know their stuff. Aftermauer, he sold his last startup, which was all about predictive maintenance.
Oh, cool.
And Hardenberg, he was actually the CTO of Delivery Hero.
No way. Well, so we're talking experienced tech people here.
For sure.
Okay, but how's the software work? I mean, am I picturing robots running around a factory? Is that what's happening?
Well, not quite robots running amok,
Okay, good.
but their software actually integrates with the factory systems that are already there.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like tapping into all that data that's coming from all the factory sensors.
So like temperature, pressure, all that.
Exactly. All those little details about how the machines are working.
So it's kind of like giving the AI a total behind-the-scenes look at how the factory runs, like a backstage pass.
Perfect analogy. And you know that AI is analyzing all this historical data, right?
Oh, so it's learning how the factory performs.
Right. And then it uses that knowledge to train AI agents to basically be like co-pilots for the human operator.
Co-pilots. I like
Yeah.
that. So it's not replacing the people.
No.
It's more like giving them a really, really smart assistant.
Yeah, that's it. So imagine you're in a chemical plant, right?
Okay.
And you've got this reactor that you're running. It's mixing different oils to make carbon products. Now, that process, it uses a ton of energy.
Right. I can only imagine.
And even little inefficiencies, they can add up.
Yeah. So in a place like that, even a small improvement could make a big difference, right?
Absolutely. So the AI agent, it's studied all this data,
Right.
and it can actually tell you, the operator, exactly how to tweak the settings on the reactor, like how much gas to use, oil levels, temperature, all that stuff.
So it's like getting advice from this AI expert on how to run the factory at peak performance.
Yeah, while saving energy and making less waste, of course.
That sounds amazing. But hold on, how does the AI actually learn to do all that? It can't just be crunching numbers.
It's more than that. They use something called reinforcement learning. Basically, the AI learns by trial and error.
Oh, interesting.
It tries different things, sees what happens, and then figures out the best way to do the process, to optimize, basically.
Like training a dog.
Hmm.
But instead of treats, the AI gets smarter with more data.
Haha. Great analogy. And the thing with reinforcement learning is it goes beyond just making predictions.
So it can control things too, like actually control the process.
Exactly. Take like managing cooling systems. It's
Yeah.
repetitive, right?
Yeah.
The AI agent could totally handle making sure it's always at the right temperature without a person having to constantly check it. Plus, factories already use some automation, like PID controllers and MPC controllers.
Right, right. So adding AI agents isn't that crazy of a leap, I guess.
Totally.
But, I mean, doesn't this raise some red flags about AI taking over jobs? Isn't that a worry?
It's a valid concern for sure. But Juna.ai is really clear that they're not about replacing workers. They're all about optimizing what's already there, so saving money and resources.
Okay, so it's more like making everyone's job better.
Exactly. It's about efficiency. Think about it. If a factory can cut their energy use even a little bit, that's potentially millions of dollars saved.
Wow.
Christian Hardenberg, he gave this example of a company with a $20 million energy bill,
Whoa.
and they were able to reduce that.
That's huge.
Yeah. So it's not about job losses. It's about making things better for everyone.
Okay, I'm seeing the potential here, but is it even realistic to make a custom AI agent for every single factory out there? I mean, that seems impossible.
You're hitting on a really interesting part of their vision.
Okay.
Right now, yeah, they kind of tailor the AI agents for each customer,
Right.
but what they're working towards is offering pre-trained agents.
So like off-the-shelf AI.
Pretty much.
Mhm.
They want to use like simulations and templates to build this whole library of AI agents that need way less training.
That's really smart. So two companies with similar machines could potentially use the same AI agent.
Exactly.
That would make things so much faster. And cheaper, probably. But what about data privacy? I mean, factories have a ton of sensitive information. Sharing that with an AI system seems kind of risky.
You're right. Data privacy is a huge deal, and Juna.ai is very aware of that.
Okay, good.
So for their German customers, all the data stays in Germany, and they have really strong security to keep everything safe.
So they're not out there collecting a bunch of new data. It's more about using what's already there in a smarter way.
Right, and they're totally transparent about how they use the data, and they follow all the rules and regulations.
Awesome. Sounds like they're off to a good start. So where are they at in terms of like growth? Are they still small or are they taking over the world?
They're still pretty new, like just over a year old,
Oh, wow.
but they've got a good number of customers in Germany already. And a lot of those customers, they have other branches in different places, or they're part of bigger international companies.
So there's potential for them to grow naturally through those connections.
Exactly.
That's smart. Okay, well, we've covered a lot, and it sounds like Juna.ai is doing some really cool stuff. But big picture, what does this mean for factories? Like, the future of factories, what's going to happen?
Well, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah. What happens when AI is just a normal part of every factory?
It's a pretty fascinating thing to think about.
It is. I mean, are we talking about humans and machines working together, or are we on the road to robots taking over? Lots to think about.
Definitely. Yeah, it really is fascinating. I mean, on the one hand, you've got Juna.ai showing how AI can make things more sustainable and more efficient.
Right.
But then it makes you wonder about what happens to the workers. What will their jobs be like?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? Is this a good thing for everyone, or is it more complicated than that?
It's complicated for sure. I mean, some people think that AI is going to lead to a ton of job losses.
That's what we always hear, right? Robots taking over.
Right. But then others say that it'll actually create new jobs, or at least change the existing ones for the better.
Okay, so it's not just a simple robots versus humans situation.
Nope.
But how do we make sure it's a smooth transition? I mean, I've seen enough sci-fi movies to be a little worried about the robots taking over.
Uh-huh. I hear you. I think it comes down to how we approach it. If we think of AI as a tool to help humans, to free us up from the boring and repetitive tasks, then it could actually make work a lot better.
So instead of being scared of AI taking our jobs, we should be excited about it freeing us up to do more creative and interesting things.
Exactly. Think about it. The AI could handle all the data and the fine-tuning of complex processes, while the humans could focus on problem solving and using their experience and intuition.
Yeah, I like that. A real partnership.
Yeah, each side using their strengths.
Okay, but let's be real. There are going to be some challenges along the way, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, integrating AI into these real-world factory environments is going to be tricky. It's not like factories are perfectly predictable places. Things happen.
So we can't just throw an AI into a factory and expect it to work perfectly right away.
Exactly. Plus, there's the whole data thing. AI, especially reinforcement learning, needs a ton of data to learn.
Right.
So figuring out how to access and manage all that data securely and ethically, that's a huge deal.
We talked about data privacy earlier, but I think it's worth repeating. Companies have to be really careful about how they're using that data, and they have to be upfront about it.
Absolutely. And then there's the human element, too. Anytime you bring in new tech, it's going to disrupt things.
Right.
It's super important to bring the workers along, to listen to their concerns, and to give them the training they need. You have to build trust.
It's a good reminder that even the most advanced technology is only as good as the people using it.
For sure. And speaking of the human side of things, I think one of the most interesting things Juna.ai brings up is this question. Will AI actually lead to more collaboration between humans and machines?
Oh, that's a good one.
Or will it just tip the scales even further towards automation and machines taking over?
Are we headed for a future where we're all working in harmony with robots? Or are the robots going to be calling the shots?
Who knows? That's a question we're going to be wrestling with for a while, I think. There's no easy answer. But I think companies like Juna.ai, they're pointing us in the right direction.
Yeah, because they're focusing on humans and machines working together. And they're committed to sustainability.
Exactly.
It's definitely a journey with a lot of twists and turns ahead. But it's one we'll keep exploring here on the Deep Dives. So what's next for Juna.ai? Where are they going from here?
Well, they're working on those pre-trained agents we talked about.
Right.
And they're looking to expand beyond just Germany. They want to go global. Plus, they're always doing research, trying to find new ways to use AI in industrial settings.
So they're not slowing down anytime soon.
Nope.
That's awesome. It's great to see a company like Juno.ai pushing the boundaries of what AI can do in factories. But I think we have to remember, at the end of the day, AI is just a tool. It's up to us how we use it.
100%. We get to decide how AI shapes our lives, and we have to use it responsibly and ethically.
It's not just about making money. It's about using technology to make a better future for everyone, a future that's sustainable and where everyone benefits. Okay, but before we get too philosophical, let's talk about some of the roadblocks Juno.ai might face as they try to bring this tech to more people.
Yeah, well, one thing is just awareness. A lot of companies are still hesitant about AI.
Really?
Yeah, sometimes they don't really understand it. Sometimes they're worried about the cost or how complicated it is. So Juno.ai has to do a good job of explaining why their tech is valuable and showing how it can make a real difference.
So it's not enough to just have the tech. They have to convince people to use it.
Right, and they can't forget about data privacy either.
Right.
They've been good about it so far. But as they grow and move into new markets and industries, they have to be even more careful about security and being transparent.
Makes sense. Sounds like they've got a lot on their plate, but they seem ready for it. It's inspiring to see a company tackling such big and important issues.
It is.
But I'm curious, what does this mean for the average worker in a factory? How can they prepare for this AI future?
That's the question everyone should be asking themselves.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing is to keep learning new things and to focus on developing skills that work well with AI, not against it.
So instead of trying to be better than the robots, we should focus on the things that make us human. Things AI can't do, like creativity and critical thinking and emotional intelligence.
Exactly. Plus, AI is still pretty new.
Right.
There's still a lot to figure out. The best thing you can do is be adaptable, stay informed, and be open to learning and growing as the technology changes.
So basically, we have the power to shape how AI develops. We're not just along for the ride. But what about the bigger picture? We've talked about sustainability and jobs, but are there other things we should be thinking about when it comes to AI in factories?
Well, one thing that people don't always think about is worker safety.
Oh, right.
AI could actually make factories safer by doing the dangerous jobs and by helping identify potential hazards.
Yeah, that's a huge plus.
Definitely. And I'm sure both workers and companies would be happy about that.
For sure. But is there a chance this reliance on AI could lead to new problems?
Yeah.
Like, could it make things less safe in some ways?
There are always risks with new tech. AI is no different.
Right.
One worry is that these AI systems could be hacked or manipulated.
Oh, yeah.
So cybersecurity is going to be super important.
That's true. We can't just assume everything will be fine. We have to be smart about how we use AI and think about the potential downsides.
Absolutely. And another thing is that AI isn't some magic fix.
Right.
It can be used for good or bad. It depends on the people creating and using it.
So it all comes back to us. We have to be responsible and make sure AI is being used the right way. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're still talking about AI in factories, not some evil AI taking over the world.
Right. Well, let's not get carried away. But I do think what Juno.ai is doing is a really good example of how AI can be used to solve real-world problems.
Yeah,
And it's great that they're making sustainability a priority.
totally agree. It's not just about efficiency or profits. It's about using tech to make a better future for everyone and to protect the planet.
Okay, but let's zoom in on Juno.ai's approach for a second. They're all about optimization, but could that actually create new problems?
That's a really good point. You always have to be careful when you're optimizing for one specific thing.
Like, what if they just focus on saving energy and forget about everything else?
Yeah, exactly. What if they end up sacrificing product quality or worker safety?
It's all about balance, right?
Right. You have to think about all the different factors.
Okay, so what would the ideal factory of the future look like if Juno.ai is successful? Paint me a picture. Okay, imagine this. A factory that's using as little energy as possible.
Cool.
Almost zero waste.
Wow.
And everything's running super efficiently. Humans and AI are working together, each doing what they do best. And they're making high-quality products. It's productive, sustainable, and a good place for people to work.
That sounds amazing. But is that really possible?
I think so. I mean, the technology is there.
So what's holding us back?
Us. People are resistant to change. They're scared of what they don't know.
So it's not just about building better AI, it's about changing how we think about work and technology.
Exactly. We need people with vision and leadership who are willing to embrace what's possible. Okay, but let's not get too carried away with the future just yet. Juno.ai is still a pretty small company, and there are a lot of big, powerful companies out there.
So what do they need to do to survive?
They need to keep innovating,
Okay.
finding new ways to use their tech and working with the big players in the industry. And they need to do a good job of marketing their product and showing companies how much money they can save by using it.
It's like any startup, right? You have to be smarter, faster, and work harder than everyone else. But honestly, I think the success of a company like Juno.ai, it's about more than just business.
I agree.
It's about the future of the planet and making sure things are better for the next generation.
Yeah, the choices we make today about technology will have a huge impact on the world tomorrow.
Absolutely. And Juno.ai is proving that it's possible to be successful and to care about sustainability at the same time.
Exactly. It's not an either situation. Okay, but let's get back to the real world for a second. What are some of the unexpected consequences we might see if AI becomes really common in factories?
Well, one worry is that it could actually make inequality worse.
Oh, how so?
Well, if the benefits of AI aren't shared fairly, the gap between the rich and the poor could get even bigger.
So even though AI might create new opportunities for some people, it could also push others out, leading to job losses and more poverty.
Right. And it's not just about jobs. AI could also be used in ways that discriminate against certain groups of people or reinforce existing biases. Oh, wow. That's a scary thought. We need to be really careful about how we design and use these AI systems to make sure they're fair to everyone.
Absolutely. And we can't forget about privacy and security either. As factories become more dependent on AI, they become bigger targets for hackers and data breaches.
So there are definitely trade-offs to consider.
Right. We have to weigh the good against the bad and make smart decisions.
And we have to be ready to adapt and change as the technology develops.
Totally.
So what's Juno.ai's ultimate goal? Where do they see themselves in the future?
Their big dream is to be the top company for AI solutions for sustainable manufacturing. They want to help companies all over the world become more eco-friendly and create a better future for the planet.
That's a big goal.
It is, but I think it's achievable.
Yeah.
And as we've been talking about, their work could change not just factories, but also how we think about humans and machines working together. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
Okay, well, I think it's time to let our listeners process everything we've talked about.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
We've covered so much. From the technical details of AI to the bigger questions about society and ethics. And while there are definitely challenges ahead, I think it's clear that factories are going to be very different in the future. They're going to be smarter, more efficient, and hopefully a lot more sustainable.
I agree. It's a really exciting time to be watching this all unfold.
Absolutely. But before we go, I want to thank our expert for being here today and sharing their insights.
It was my pleasure. Always happy to talk about AI.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of AI in factories. We hope you found it informative and interesting. And as always, keep the conversation going, share your thoughts and ideas, and help shape the future of this technology. Okay, we're back. And wow, that was a lot. AI agents, factories, sustainability, the future of work. It's a lot to think about.
It is. And I think it's easy to get caught up in all the excitement and maybe, I don't know, forget that AI is just a tool at the end of the day.
Right. It's not a magic wand that's going to fix everything.
Yeah.
And as we've talked about, there are some potential risks. Like, what about jobs? And could these systems become biased? That's a little worrying.
Yeah, those are definitely valid concerns. And that's why it's so important for companies to be really careful about how they use AI.
Okay, so what can they do? What are some concrete steps they can take to make sure they're using AI responsibly?
Well, first off, they have to be open and honest about how they're using AI, both with their employees and with their customers.
So no more hiding behind these complicated algorithms that nobody understands.
Exactly. People need to know what data is being collected, how it's being used, and what's being done to protect their privacy. Transparency is key.
Makes sense. But it's not just about being transparent, right? What about those biases we talked about? How can companies make sure their AI systems aren't discriminating against certain groups of people?
That's where testing and monitoring come in. They need to be constantly checking their algorithms to make sure they're being fair and not making decisions based on things like race, gender, or religion.
So it's like an ongoing process, not a one-time fix.
Exactly. But who's ultimately responsible for all of this?
Hmm?
Is it the tech companies building the AI, the businesses using it, or should the government step in and create some rules?
Yeah, that's a good question. Who's in charge here?
Honestly, I think it's a shared responsibility. We need everyone working together. The tech companies need to design systems that are fair and transparent. The businesses need to use AI in a way that benefits everyone, not just their bottom line. And the government needs to create some guidelines to protect people.
It's like a three-legged stool. You need all three legs to keep it stable. But there's often a big gap between what should happen and what actually happens. How do we bridge that gap?
It's tough, but I think education is a good place to start. We need to teach people about AI, the good and the bad. And not just regular people, but policymakers too, so they can make informed decisions.
Okay, so knowledge is power. But is that enough?
Probably not. We also need a culture shift. We need companies to start thinking about ethical AI development as a core value, not just something they do on the side.
So it's not just about checking boxes. It's about really believing that ethical AI is important.
Right. And that starts at the top. Leaders need to set the example, but it's also about empowering employees to speak up if they see something wrong, creating a culture of accountability.
I like that. So it's about everyone taking responsibility, not just leaving it to the experts. But we've been talking a lot about Juna.ai. They're just one company doing this. What are some other cool things happening with AI agents?
Oh, so many. We're seeing AI agents being used in all sorts of fields. Customer service, healthcare, finance, education. It's really exploding.
I'm actually really interested in that education piece. Like, could AI agents be used to create personalized learning experiences?
Exactly. Imagine having a tutor that knows exactly how you learn best and can adjust to your pace. That's the power of AI.
That would be amazing. But okay, let's be real. Couldn't AI agents also be used for some not so good things? Like, I've seen those movies where the AI becomes evil and tries to take over. Is that a possibility?
It's a possibility we have to take seriously. As AI gets more advanced, we need to be really careful about how we control it. But I think it's important to remember that AI is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad.
Right. It's all about who's wielding the tool and what they're using it for. So what about the government? What role should they play? Should they be creating more regulations around AI, or should they stay out of it?
It's a tricky balance. We don't want to stifle innovation with a bunch of rules, but we also need some safeguards to protect people.
Finding that sweet spot is going to be key.
Yeah. And I think the best way to do that is for the government to work closely with the experts, both people in the industry and researchers who are studying AI.
So collaboration is key, basically.
Absolutely. But let's shift gears a bit. What about our listeners? What can they do to stay informed about all this AI stuff and how it might affect their lives?
There's a lot they can do. There are tons of resources online and offline. They can follow news sources that cover AI, go to conferences and webinars, connect with experts on social media, and they should never be afraid to ask questions.
Be curious.
Exactly. The more we talk about AI, the better prepared we'll be for the future.
Okay, last question. We've talked about Juna.ai and factories, but AI agents have the potential to do so much more. Could they be used to make the world a more sustainable place in general?
Definitely. Juna.ai sees their work as part of a bigger movement towards using tech for good. They think AI can help us tackle some of the toughest problems facing our planet, like climate change and resource scarcity.
That's really inspiring. It gives me hope for the future.
Me too. And remember, sustainability isn't just about the environment. It's also about creating a fairer and more just world for everyone. Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, from the nuts and bolts of AI agents to the bigger ethical and societal questions.
It's been a great conversation, and I hope our listeners have a better grasp of both the potential of AI and the challenges that come with it.
Me too. And as we've discussed, the future of AI is not set in stone.
Mm.
We all have a role to play in shaping it. So to our listeners, we leave you with this. What role do you want to play in the AI revolution? How can you use your voice and your actions to make sure AI is used for good? It's something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of AI agents.